Methamphetamine is a central nervous system stimulant. When you think about methamphetamine, what comes to mind? Usually people think of Breaking Bad or a street name, crystal, glass, ice, or what it can lead to like jail. But methamphetamines are actually more commonly used to treat people with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, also known as ADHD, or to treat obesity after other methods have failed. But where did methamphetamines come from? The history of methamphetamines dates back to 1887 Germany, when amphetamines were first synthesized. Methamphetamines were discovered in 1919 in Japan by a pharmacologist named Ortega, and they were more potent and easier to make. In the 1930s, amphetamines were marketed as Benzedrine and the over-the-counter inhaler to treat nasal congestion for asthmatics or people who suffer from hay fever or just even people who had just a common cold, and used for people who also had narcolepsy. By 1937, amphetamine was available by prescription in tablet form. Then in World War II, methamphetamines really skyrocketed because they kept the troops awake and aware. High doses were given to Japanese kamikaze pilots before their suicide missions and Allied bomber pilots to sustain them on long flights. After the war, methamphetamine injection abuse reached epidemic proportions when amphetamine supplies stored for military use became available to the Japanese public, but it was later banned. And then overproduction of methamphetamines really came into play. Methamphetamine spread to Guam, the U.S. Marshall Islands, and to the U.S. West Coast. In the 1950s, it was still marketed and legally produced as a tablet under the name Methadone to treat obesity, narcolepsy, and sinus inflammation. But truckers used it, busy parents, college students, and athletes all popped pills to stay awake or keep active. In the 1960s, there was a more significant use of illegal manufactured methamphetamine by users within their own homes. Since crystal meth is made from everyday household chemicals and common household components, it makes it easy to manufacture. The injection rate of the drug was at an all-time high, and that's why in 1970 methamphetamine became regulated in the Controlled Substances Act and was severely restricted. After the act was passed, illegal trafficking continued, though, and Mexican drug manufacturers began bringing methamphetamines north of the border. Forms of methamphetamines that could be smoke were introduced in the 1980s. In the 1990s, newer and stronger versions were still appearing over in the Midwest. And it continues to increase in use as the years continued, and that's why in 1996, Congress passed the Comprehensive Methamphetamine Control Act, which regulates mail order and chemical companies selling precursor chemicals. And precursor chemicals are the chemicals that go into making meth. So people who buy large quantities of red phosphor, iodine, or hydrochloric gas must show that they're using them for legit reasons. Law enforcement agents are allowed to track large mail orders, purchase of pseudoephedrine, another precursor chemical. Chemical supply companies are punished if they sell any type of chemical to an outside person. In 2011, Mexico has seized a massive lab with 15 tons of finished products, and in 2012, this past year, 51 pounds of Mexican meth was seized on Long Island, a region that really hasn't even seen much meth. So they're trying to branch out, but thank God the government of Mexico they're beginning to start fighting back with the problem, and they're banning the import of pseudoephedrine. A whole container of one of the precursor drugs was coming to Mexico from China, but it was labeled with another chemical's name, and they're starting to make more meth with different chemicals. But many people in Mexico who use the new version with these new chemicals that aren't as highly restricted because they're not known for making meth are coming with severe physical damage. People were unable to think or talk coherently after they had took the new meth. I mean, it's just nuts out there. And today we're still fighting the war on meth. but mostly we're trying to get it under control, and that's my informative speech on meth and how it came to be and where we're at it today.